In this video, I'm going to show you the plant tour of my house here in Florida, all the plants that I had, and the plants that I had to leave behind when I moved into an apartment. Hey there, I'm Pablo from Allure Inc. And in this video, I'm going to show you the plant tour of my house here in Florida. This was before I was moving. So I'm basically going to make this video into a compilation of what I grew and how the outside of the house looked for the past 4 years. This is both going to double as a way of just showing you guys some of the plants that I've owned, and also as a way of me just remembering the house and everything that happened there, like in a video. So I really hope you enjoy me from a few weeks back, moving out with all my plants and telling you about it.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of pull them from the shelf and show it to you guys. Talk a little bit about how long I've had them, my experience, my background, and then put them away. Behind the camera where it is, there's a bunch of boxes. So I'm gonna show it to you guys, and then it's going into a box to be moved to my new place. Up first is this beautiful Philodendron Brazil. It has these really big leaves that I just adore, and I gave it a moss bowl. I've been watching a lot about how to grow plants indoors on moss bowls with like the Lecca Queen and also Sydney Plant Guy. So I just been sort of watching, learning, and trying to edit and implement what works for my own setting and my own conditions. In this case, this was a really random cutting that I got. If you see over here, this is actually where it came from. This is a basket full of Brazil, but it just went crazy. It decided to just go up the fence. Over here, there's some of them that are just attached to the wood on the fence, nothing else. And this is sort of like the top cutting of that was getting full-blown sun above like the canopy, and then that's why it ended up with like these massive leaves. I mean, you can see my hand, you know, they're almost like the size of my palm. Beautiful plant. And it's been in this clear pot for a little bit. I've transitioned a lot of my plants into clear pots just so I can keep an eye on the root system indoor. Outdoor clear pots are gonna just turn really green and kind of gross. So I'm hoping that indoor I can monitor and it doesn't just burn the leaves as long as I'm there. This one right here is my Philodendron Painted Lady. This actually is also the top cutting of a plant that I've had for a few years. I had it growing on the top shelf of the plant rack, and that part really gets dry really fast. So this plant was constantly just getting super bone dry, like really dry, and it was just not happy. So it was just really long and small, and I said to just like chop it, and I stuck it into this media with a little bit more mix of everything. And ew, okay, hold on. I need a moment. So you just got a little bit of a reaction of me realizing that this pot has a couple of unwanted guests. So before I go to the guests, because I'm keeping an eye on them, let me just finish the story. I cut the painted lady in half, and then there's a second one right here that I got in a swap, and I just wanted them together. There's two little froglets. If you see them right here, I highly doubt that this is gonna focus enough for you to see them. You can see a little paw sticking out of the this side. Oh, I think it is right there. You see the tiny little paw. Um, so I'm gonna have to remove them. I cannot take them with me because I have a cat, so they're dead. And also, I don't want to bring parasites in all the stuff that just comes with animals. Like I get it, it's normal, it's fine. So I love Florida and I absolutely adore living here, and I love being able to grow all these plants. But the only part that I will not miss about growing plants right here in the outdoor is the fucking amphibians. I love them. I love the frogs. I love toads. BFFs. I don't mind them. You know, there's snakes, there's lizards. We're good. I don't mind them. I'm not afraid of them. As long as I can see you, we're good. I just don't like surprise amphibians. And that has been my personal history in this spot so long. I will grab a pot and it's full of like a bunch of frogs or a bunch of like toads. And or there's a fucking snake. So now I'm super worried of it. And like I said, I've never been harmed. Nothing has ever bitten me. I've never been injured. You just scared the shit out of you. So the first thing I'm doing for this one is inspecting the sides to see if I see any surprise toad. All right, we're good. This is my Philodendron Silver Sword. It's a plant that I obtained in a swap, and this is sort of like the cutting that it's in. It has this beautiful metallic bluish sheen to the leaves. They are thin. I got this plant in an exchange, and I'm going to try to grow it in a moss bowl because I really want to achieve those really long leaves that are very pretty.
Hello, so this is going to be our first cactus break. These are some of the cactuses that just brought me so much joy to have, and the first one is my Cereus Spiralis. This was just a behemoth that we just got for the back. It was literally like a 1 foot piece that just went insane. It ended up in the front yard, in the backyard, and it would bloom and would have these beautiful big white flowers, and I just loved it.
This is my Philodendron Black Cardinal. I've had this plant for quite a few years. It has gone through a lot with me. It has been here for 4 years, and its biggest struggle has just been unfurling with spider mites. Spider mites are the bane of many of us aroid growers, and this plant has just been a victim of multiple infestations that I just have to spray a bunch of neem. I need to be washing the leaves, and usually they love to go after these unfurling leaves right here. You see, like, they're struggling to unfurl. I need to like open it, inspect that it doesn't have a bunch of animals in it. Oh, it does. All right, actually I need to spray this plant before putting it to go away because it does have some stupid spiders in there. So what they do is they create a web and they make the leaves that is unfurling just stay attached, and then that just makes a mess. It makes the leaf not unfurl. It just makes a really ugly plant. But once he is done with an infestation and puts out a few leaves, I love this plant. My favorite type of philodendrons are the ones that take you, usually like the Erubescens cultivars. But basically, I love whenever you change colors in leaves. I love when it comes out in one color and then it just turns green at the end of it. That is my favorite experience to have with philodendrons. So Black Cardinal is going to be with me forever because I just love that. I love the dark leaves, and he's easy to grow as long as you stay on top of the freaking spider mites. I'm just throwing back there all the plants that cannot be in the box because they need help. She needs some milk. All right, so this is my Philodendron White Knight. It's a plant that I just got through a swap. It's a plant that used to be rare maybe like 3 years ago, but now through cultivation you can find it really cheap in like plant stores. So I'm really glad to finally have it, but I'm really glad to finally have it, but honestly, out of the three sort of white whatever, I like the white princess the most, which is not this. So I'm hoping to change my mind. I'm hoping that growing it is gonna make me fall in love with it. I love the redness in the just the stem and the petiole, and I think the leaf comes out in a reddish tone, which I just love. It does not have a lot of variegation, and that is just Philodendron White Knight. It is just not known for like half moons or anything like that. Those are like white wizards and stuff like that. So I'm really excited just to have this plant go up the moss bowl. You can clearly see that it just attached, even though I just put it there like maybe, I don't know, a week ago. This little root was like, oh yeah, I'm finding my way home. So I'm really excited to see what happens with it. I'm hoping that as it gets bigger, it's just gonna have more variegation. And if not, I'll just enjoy the stems and growing this plant because it's just fun. All right, so this is going to be a little bit more of a rapid fire because I'm just gonna put them in small container. These are a lot of more small plants that, it's part of the journey, but they're not big enough to deserve. I'm checking this one because I literally dropped this pot from like all the way to the top, just down. Because when I grabbed it, there were fucking greenhouse frogs in there, and I touched them and it was gross, and I was not expecting it, and I just dropped it. Struggles. All right, so this is my variegated Philodendron Burle Marx. It's one of those plants where I don't love yellow variegation. It is not my favorite type, and I don't love unstable variegations. So this is basically that. Sometimes you're gonna get a green leaf, sometimes you're gonna get fully yellow, sometimes you get like a nice variegated version. This was part of a swap. It was a nice gift, so thank you so much. I'm gonna keep it in a small pot for now. I'm gonna try to get a nice root system on it, and then once I think it's big enough, I'm gonna transfer it into one of those moss poles. I'm just gonna let it sort of like climb up the moss pole and see what it does. So I'm gonna update you on what this little philodendron Burle Marx is doing. Now these are kind of like super basic alocasias. So I've been trying to collect all of the jewel alocasias, which they're not related. They're just like a category someone made up because they look kind of cool. Up next is Philodendron Maculata's finale, another cultivar of Erubescens and kind of similar to Prince of Orange, but not the same. Prince of Orange has a much longer leaf. This one is a little bit more rounder, more like a heart, and it tends to be more red when Prince of Orange is more orange. So right now it's really hard to tell them apart because when they're babies, I sort of got to look identical, but I'm literally sitting right next to the mother plant and it does look different. So this is a little baby of my big Philodendron McColley's finale. Same thing as like my Prince of Orange. It got that big. It's in the exact same pod just behind the camera, orange. It's just too big, and I had to kind of pick and choose which of the two heads, which of the two kingdoms I was gonna follow up next, and I just had to choose my Prince of Orange, and I just took a little baby of that was growing on the stem, and that's what I'm taking of this McColley, and the other one is just gonna probably go sit in the curb and see if someone picks it up or just be taken out with the trash. This is McColley finale, and I'm really excited to see how it does indoor. I'm hoping to go back to having those big leaves that I love. Off. Ah, get down. Get down. It has a freaking brown anole, a baby there. All right, hop down. There you go. No one else? No more surprise hitchhikers? Ah, damn, Florida. This massive head is actually the top part of the plant that has been growing in this pot right here. Let me show them, drop it. You see how big its leaves are. It's you see now the body is just sort of dangling. I call it the beheaded king of orange uh, because he's dead. So the prince now shall live on. That is just a chunk. I'm probably just gonna give away or just unfortunately kind of throw out because a lot of people don't want to raise a really common plant from a chunk because it's a lot of work for not enough juice. So it'll probably just have to kind of die. But the prince will live on. You can see how big these leaves are. I absolutely adore this plant. Orange is my favorite color, and orange prince is one of my favorite philodendrons. My particular favorite part about this plant is how each leaf tells you a story. Because every single struggle that the leaf has to come out of its sheath will be translated into the leaf. So if you don't like having stretch marks on your leaves, this plant might not be for you. But here you can clearly see how sometimes it will struggle to come out, and it creates this sort of like almost to me looks like stretch marks, which is just like warrior marks. You see over here in this one, you can also see all the redness as it struggled to sort of come out. And I just love that because to me, it's like a journey that you're having with this plant. This leaf is on the full blown struggle buzz. You can see it's sort of like blackening a little bit up here. And I mean, what you gonna do? He got chopped. So he lost most of its roots and he's been sitting on water with rooting or hormone and leca for, I don't know, like 2 weeks. So it's not mushy. I checked the stem, everything is solid. But I think this plant's gonna struggle a little bit transitioning to go with me into the apartment, which I'm super bummed out. But I'm going to do my best, and yeah, I'll update you guys. Up next is this sad excuse of a plant, which is a Calathea white fusion. Look at that. That whiteness is beautiful. JK, this plant reverted. So, story time. White fusions are not easy. They're tough plants. They're very, very finicky on the amount of light they get. They're very, very finicky on the amount of water they get. And man, it's been tough. I would put it in one spot, it would look beautiful, it was fine, and then 3 days later, something would happen. It would be like a storm. It would be like really sunny for like a week, and then that plant would be not happy, and we like either like down leaves, burnt leaves. I would move it to another spot. It again would be beautiful, and then you would have this one condition that happens for like 2 weeks, like too much rain, too much sun. It got too dry, and then it always like struggles. And I guess it struggled so much that the only thing that survived in my white fusion were the not variegated parts, and it's now non-variegated. And I don't know, honestly, I just put this corm, I don't even know if it's called a corm in Calatheas, but I just put the chunk that was not soft in some leca, and I put this in water, and it did have a little bit of a root system, you can see here. So I was like, all right, good luck. And it started pumping out leaves. And I was really excited because I actually thought it was going to put out like variegated leaves. But no cigar. So far, all of them have been green. Yes, I know I could buy another one of these for $10 and have this beautiful plant. But that's not why I raise plants. While I want to look at them and appreciate them, I kind of like the journey of them. And this little plant knob has not died and has been with me for like 2 years. And man, how we struggle together. So I'm just going to hold on to it and hope that we just struggle into beauty eventually, or it just dies. But either way, I'm not giving up on it. Not yet. So this is my white fusion. I really hope there's some kind of updated video on this looking like a banger. Speaking of sad excuses for plants, this is my Begonia Maculata fully struggling. Yeah, yikes, right? This plant is not doing good. So now this is the backup of the backup. This is another kind of angel wing Begonia Maculata. It's a different morphology. As you can see, the dots are more spread apart. They're a little bigger. The leaf is longer. I don't want to have to struggle with begonias just because the outside life for begonias are tough in a container. They just want to be in this ground, left alone and ignored. And that is just tough to do when you're trying to be an indoor house parent. This is my Philodendron Micans. Yes. This is my Philodendron Micans, and it's one of those plants that honestly I've kind of been kind of neutral and indifferent towards for the longest time. I love my velvety philodendrons, but it doesn't really get big, and it tends to be a crawler and a bit messy. So when I got this tiny little plug, all I did is I just threw it on the same pot as my Philodendron gloriosum, and it did okay. It survived for years. It never died. It was just creating like small little amounts of it. And then when I knew I was gonna move, I was browsing through Instagram and I saw, I forgot his name, but basically they have the Micans in a pole and it looks beautiful and it's like this 360. And I was like, you know what, that looks cool. Let me give it a shot. And that gives me enough motivation to love Micans a little bit more. I've honestly been watching some of the newer variegated versions and they're so pretty. I love the pinkness of it. But I think a lot of them are sun-stressed variegations, and those are kind of wonky. I would not be paying $500 for that kind of Micans. Just give it a lot of light and just enjoy the leaf as it unfurls, and that's the pink, and that's a great story. So I'm going to update you guys as this plant gets a lot bigger. I'm hoping that it just reaches the top and then it looks beautiful. So this is Philodendron Micans, and now I'm finally excited to own it.
All right, welcome to the second break for succulents. Throughout the years, I had a raised bed where I had a bunch of different species. I had a lot of like Colancoes, like the flapjacks. I had a bunch of echeverias, many different species. At one point, I had also a bunch of aloes and a Madagascar palm that got beautiful. I also had a bunch of agaves, which were great. Those hairy cactus did not do well once it started raining too much. It was always a struggle. Any kind of aeonium, I could not make it survive, even though I bought a bunch. And then in the front, I also had a crested, variegated one, and I had a bunch of blue gloves agave, which were absolutely beautiful. And of course, the other cactus.
Up next is my Philodendron Paraiso Verde. This is actually a current, I have 2 of them, and this is the swap that I did. I was surprised they gave me this plant this size. I was more than happy to have it. These new leaves came out under my care. They gave it to me kind of like coming out kind of like that. So Paraiso Verde is one of those plants that are really controversial because people buy them because they look beautiful online, and then they just get green leaves and they don't know why. And the answer is because your house is too damn cold. This plant does not like the cold. It does not like temperature changes that much. It is a temperature dependent variegation. So what that means is this plant needs to have constant warm temperature in order to produce the green, light green. And if it doesn't, it's gonna produce dark green and then just looks like a normal philodendron that you're like, why am I growing this? And then actually it almost creates this pattern of just really bad variegation, because some of them were with a warm light, some of them were with a cold, maybe then you moved, maybe there was winter. You just create a really weird pattern if you're trying to grow this in a outside of a cabinet or not in a warm place. But I'm in South Florida, so of course this thing is super variegated. We're in the summer, we're existing in the 80s at least most of the day, so this plant gets enough light and enough warmth that it just keeps the variegation. Just be careful buying this plant online. I would say buy a Jose Buono. That's probably your better solution, because at least that has a more stable variegation that is not dependent on a random condition. I think that one is more about light and more about genetics. This is more about how much warmth can you provide to it. Up next is the most basic plant to exist, which is Philodendron Birkin. I've seen some pictures. Some people grow these to be absolutely beautiful. For me, it's a mixed bag, because at the beginning when I first bought this plant, it started putting out really white leaves that were not turning green, and then I moved it to a different spot and it was producing really nice leaves. But then eventually it sort of like got too long, or it stretched out. I'm not really sure what happened, and then it just started putting out green leaves, and then the whole thing just became a stump. I will actually show you the stump. This is the container that it used to be in, and this is literally like, that is the Birkin right there, stumps. That is eventually what it turned into, and I was like, well, that's that. But I don't give up on my plants, because it was still hard. It was not mushy, so I dead ass just left it there. Ignored it. I was like, good luck, whatever happens happens. And it just like came back to life, and it came back with like this weird variegation in which at the beginning it was kind of starting off green, and I was like, well, I guess you revert it. But then it started putting out like this, it's not even a half moon, I don't even know what the hell this is. It's this weird sort of green variegation. I don't know if you can focus and see it. So most of the leaves striped except this area, which is fully green. And that's what most of the leaves underneath the new ones actually look like. And then it started just putting out the normal kind of leaves, but they do create this brown nest to it. I don't know if you can see it in the camera. Maybe if I'm hide from it, it'll focus. Focus. I'll take a zoom in picture if it doesn't show. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's like just too much light. I don't know if it's like some infection. I've inspected it. I've treated it. I'm not really sure what causes that brown spot in it. I gave it the chop fully like a month ago out of that pot into this one, mostly because I wanted to transition it into leca, but I don't know. It kind of liked it. So I put it in here just as a temporary 1 day sort of solution, and then it kind of stayed and it started putting out leaves, and it actually rooted. And I was like, I don't know if I want to, like, if it ain't broke, right? Like, why am I transitioning out of this? But also I want to kind of go a little more soilless on my whole journey with plants. So I'm not really sure what I'm gonna do with this. I'll definitely, if you're seeing this, is gonna be part of an updated video with whatever I decided to do. Philodendron Birkin. This is Philodendron Red Emerald, or Philodendron Erubescens. Oh shit. Might have something climbing on it. That's why I'm like, I like picking up plants and then realizing like, oh, wait a minute. You need to be sprayed before I take you home. I'm not trying to bring all these fucking parasites with me. The fuck? Alright, so this is the example of my Triostar. Right here. I love her. She is this great plant that has this this incredible plant with a pink underside that is part of the prayer plant family, or the prayer plant category. Basically what it means is that it goes up when it doesn't want sun and it comes down when it does. So they just go up and down all day. It's a beautiful plant that I absolutely adore. I was able to get it to get really big, but unfortunately it's time to let it go. So we're gonna just take small little piece, one of these little growth points. This one's kind of large. We'll figure out one in there, and I'll just take that with me. Over here we have the rattlesnake plant, which is another one of those prayer Calatheas. Yeah, I was able to get it to get. Look how big this leaf is. Beautiful. It's so big. It also has that same. This is a much more burgundy kind of underside. Sometimes it just gets damaged and looks a little different, but this is another one that I'm just gonna have to take a little baby from here, and then hope that it keeps growing. These both plants are really picky, or especially the Triostar. Like, as you see, the pink area is really frail. So if you put it somewhere where the sun doesn't hit it right, or if you let it dry out a little too much, then you will suffer with some of the leaves, taking a turn for the worse fairly quickly. But if you find a good spot and keep it wet, all of the new stuff is gonna come out really clean, really beautiful. Look how beautiful this plant is. No, yeah, I'm just obsessed. Look about it. Ugh, love it. Yeah, so I finally found a spot that it actually loved and it liked thriving in. But that's just the battle with these. The moment you find a spot that they like, you gotta move them. So this is my Nepenthes. I grow a lot of carnivorous plants, and this is one of the hybrids that I loved to own over the past few years. That is actually why I'm trying to keep this big plant, which is the only plant that I basically had big enough for it. So this plant just creates the most beautiful pictures. And if you know anything about Nepenthes, you know how temperature sensitive they are. They're categorized as highlanders, intermediate, and lowlanders. And here in South Florida, all you can have is lowlanders, at least outside. If you want to be indoor, you just have to keep the temperature really cool at night. The nighttime temperature drop is what really impacts the size of the Highlander pictures, which tend to be all the cool ones, to be honest. So I've never actually, I bought a few at the beginning of my Nepenthes journey that just perished, and I learned better. So now I just grow lowlanders, and this is a beautiful hybrid between, I believe is Nepenthes Truncata and Nepenthes boschiana candy. And it just creates this really nice pictures. I'm gonna show a bunch of pictures right now on the screen of what it looks like. So I've been trying to transition it into this pot. It was sitting on a different pot. It was sitting on a different soil. Usually Nepenthes do not want any nutrients in their soil because everything they catch is through their leaves or through the actual pitchers. So it had to transition into just sphagnum and perlite. But that is different to the mix that it was in before, because I needed something that would retain a little moisture because Nepenthes like to be moist but not sitting in water. And in Florida, I struggle a lot with its temperature and the sun and keeping it not bone dry. Because once sphagnum moss gets too dry, it becomes hydrophobic, and it's a pain in the ass to just like rework with that. So it was in a different mix with a lot more peat moss, and it was perfectly happy for years. But we're now transitioning to a pot into a much different environment. He's going to my new IKEA cabinet, and I'm just hoping the best for him because he has brought me so much joy that I just don't want to have to lose him, and lose that experience because I just love him so much. And something that I loved is realizing that in these pots in my link in bio, actually, if you pull out the the water meter, you can put one of those green support bars that go behind your moss poles once you get big enough, and they work perfectly. They don't really need substrate to climb up their structure. That is not how this plant works. This plant works by attaching its tendrils, or the structure that is at the end of the leaf, and it actually wraps that around whatever it's holding on to, and then the pitcher sort of grows attached to that for stability, and that's how it climbs. So it doesn't really produce like roots along the sort of stem unless you sort of put something in there to make it, but it doesn't really climb like a philodendron would. So it doesn't need that. It just needs the support. It just needs to feel like it's climbing up, because all the nutrients it's getting from the pitchers and just from the leaves, which is just as like foliar feed. Here up next, it's also another hybrid. This is a veitchii boschiana candy, which you would think is not the most lowland condition, but I think because of the kind of heritage and the parents that it had, it ended up being really, really good lowlander. This is actually a baby. I gave away the big part because it was way too big, too long. So I gave that away. I'm going to post some pictures of what kind of pictures come out of this. They're beautiful. They are just flared. They're just striped. They last a long time. I absolutely love this plant. I've had it for like 3 years now, ish, and I've just gone through so many pictures. I even made it to having some uppers. If you're not familiar with Nepenthes, they change the morphology of their pitchers from when they're at the bottom of their thing. They have sort of like little hairs on the sides that help bugs climb. And then as it gets really, really tall, it starts to produce what is called like upper pitchers. There's also like an intermediate stage in between the two, but upper pitchers are just kind of different because they're more shaped to catch stuff that is going to be in the air. So this plant is beautiful. I love it, and I hope it does really well with me.
Welcome now to our carnivorous plant rapid fire. Over the years, I owned a bunch of carnivorous plants that I loved, like this Nepenthes Ventrata. This is like the starter plant that everybody gets, and I got one to just wrap around a palm and get huge. It would have literally hundreds of pitchers, and it was amazing until it died. This is my Rafflesiana, I believe it's called. It's supposed to get really, really big. Unfortunately, mine got really big leaves, and the pitchers just never quite matched the rest. So one time it rained a lot and it got really, really damp and it got root rot and it just perished. And I didn't really buy it back because, like I said, it took a lot of space and the pitchers were not as big as I hoped they would be. This is one of my favorite carnivorous plants ever. This is my Nepenthes Bicalcarata because of the two teeth that it has like sticking up. I've had two versions of this plant. That is my original plant that died because I did not water it for a little bit and it got too dry. It was too hot for like a week and it was just crispy and the entire plant just completely burnt. So I got another one and it's doing a lot better. This is a Maxima hybrid that is an intermediate. It never did really well with me. I managed to get those pitchers eventually, but honestly I feel like it never truly lived up to its true potential. That taught me not to buy intermediates for us in South Florida. This is my Miranda. This is actually the Nepenthes that I would recommend everyone to get. Is Nepenthes Miranda. It's a hybrid and it's great. Oh, and I did get a few of my flowers, my Nepenthes to flower, and it was amazing. Nepenthes are one of those plants where one plant is female and the other plant is male, and you need one of each at the same time blooming to like make seeds. Not as easy. The next one is going to be all my Sarracenias. I also had some bog plants down here. I had a bunch of Sarracenias, Purpurea. I had a bunch of just the ones that kind of stick up. Some like the Scarlet Ladies or something like that. And then I also had a bunch of Venus flytraps that I grew from seed, and it was a lot of fun. I still have some left like that. And then I ended up getting some sundews just randomly from some kind of pot, and then they spread everywhere, and eventually they just died. I love carnivorous plants, and I still have a bunch, and I look forward to sharing about them with y'all. For this one, I just want to take a moment to appreciate my Anthurium Big Red Bird. It's the only Anthurium I've successfully grown. It was beautiful. It would get this purple leaves. It would have this really cool purple flower, and the leaves were absolutely massive. And yeah, and I had to leave it behind. It was too big to move, but it was great. And finally, this is my last baby that I had to kind of bring along, even though I knew it would suffer. Unfortunately, the footage for this kind of corrupted, and there's no audio, so I'm just doing a voiceover. I have absolutely no clue what I'm saying, but the gist of it is that I love this plant. It's incredible. I never expected it to be so big and fun and become one of my favorites. And I brought it into the apartment. It's living in the balcony, and it has not had a good time with the wind. The wind has just shredded all the leaves into tiny little things, and as soon as one big leaf is coming out and furling, there's gonna be a draft or something that's just gonna rip it. So yeah, so he's not been having the best of times, but I still love him, and I cut him, and I got a couple babies. So I just want to remember him for all his glory. And now I think we should just take a moment and exhale and remember the great times that this year had, and leave behind what has to be left behind. So I will miss meditating with my plants in the rain, but we'll find other places. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys.